There's a moment before the day even begins, before your feet touch the floor, when the weight is already there, heavy, familiar, settled deep in your chest. Another morning, the same storm circling inside your head. Thoughts rush in without asking permission. You're not enough. This will fail. What if everything collapses? Different day, identical battle. You try to shove the thoughts away. They push back harder. You try to drown them out. They only scream louder. And before the sun has fully risen, you're already tired, already tense, already at war with yourself. Fear starts whispering futures that haven't happened yet. Anger smolders under your skin. Anxiety tightens its grip, steady and ruthless, like a hand around your throat that refuses to let go. And no one sees it, because on the outside, you're functioning. Here's the truth most people never hear, and almost no one wants to face. The most exhausting war isn't against the world, it's against yourself. You scroll, you numb, you stay busy, you call it productivity, you call it adulthood. But the noise follows you everywhere, because it was never outside. You were never meant to live imprisoned in your own mind, dragged around by emotions you didn't choose, reacting on instinct instead of acting with reason, surviving days instead of shaping a life. But what if everything you've been taught about controlling your mind is wrong? What if the problem was never the thoughts, but your relationship with them? What if fear could stand in front of you without freezing you? What if anger could speak without setting your life on fire? What if anxiety could exist without owning you? The ancient Stoics believed this was possible, not through motivation, not through suppression, but through mastery. And that's what we're about to uncover here on Stoic Sage Academy. This isn't theology for decoration. This is philosophy for survival, for clarity, for inner command. This is not theory. This is training. This is not comfort, this is freedom. If you're ready to stop fighting yourself and start leading yourself, write "Today I take command" in the comments. Not for me, for you. Let this be the line you don't cross back over. Now, let's begin. Let me ask you something uncomfortable, but honest. How much of your life has already been quietly stolen by this internal war? How many conversations were only half-lived because your body was present, but your mind was trapped somewhere else, replaying an argument, reliving a mistake, rehearsing a future disaster that hasn't even arrived yet? How many moments that could have been joyful slipped through your fingers because anxiety whispered, "Don't relax, something bad is coming"? Look back for a second. Yesterday, last week, last year. How much energy did you burn just trying to feel normal? How many choices did you postpone because fear convinced you failure was inevitable? How many hours did you spend angry at circumstances you couldn't change, people you couldn't control, outcomes that were never yours to command in the first place? Here's the part that hurts the most. Most people live their entire lives like this. They never stop to question it. They assume this constant mental friction is just part of being human, that overthinking is normal, that emotional chaos is unavoidable, that being trapped in your own head is simply the price of consciousness. But it isn't. And somewhere deep inside you already know that. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here, listening to this right now. Something in you has started to resist. Something has decided this cannot be the final version of your life. You've reached a turning point. Maybe it came through collapse, maybe through exhaustion. Maybe you just woke up one morning and realized you can't keep waking up like this. Already tired, already tense, already bracing for impact. Whatever brought you here doesn't matter. What matters is the realization you've arrived at. This has to change. Not later, not when life calms down, not someday, now. Because the cost of staying the same is too high. You're too young to feel this worn down, too alive to feel this numb,
too capable to feel this powerless. And that quiet voice inside you, the one that says there has to be more than this, that voice is telling the truth. Now here's where most people get it wrong. They think peace requires becoming someone else, fixing themselves, eliminating every negative thought, shutting down emotion entirely. But you don't need to be repaired, because you are not broken. You don't need to erase difficult thoughts, because that's impossible and unnecessary. What you need is something far more powerful, a new relationship with your inner world. You need to understand what is actually within your control and what never was. You need to learn to observe emotions without being dragged around by them. You need tools, ancient, tested tools, forged by people who faced suffering far greater than yours and still learned how to stand unshaken. You need what the Stoics knew, and that's where we go next. More than 2,000 years ago, in ancient Greece and Rome, people wrestled with the same forces you're wrestling with right now: loss, betrayal, uncertainty, fear of the future, anger at injustice, crushing responsibility, chronic anxiety. Life wasn't simpler, it was harsher. And yet some of them discovered how to remain calm in chaos, how to stay grounded when everything around them collapsed, how to endure hardship without letting it destroy their inner world. They were called Stoics. They weren't monks hiding from reality. They were emperors, slaves, soldiers, advisors, and teachers. Marcus Aurelius ruled the Roman Empire while plagues ravaged cities and wars pressed on every border. Epictetus was born a slave and built a philosophy of inner freedom that chains couldn't touch. Seneca advised tyrants and faced his own execution with composure. Their lives were complex, dangerous, and messy, and still they uncovered something that changed everything. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his private journal, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." He wasn't writing for an audience, he was writing to survive. And this matters to you, because Stoicism is not about suppressing emotion. It's not about pretending pain doesn't exist. It's not coldness or indifference. It's clarity. It's the ability to distinguish between what you can influence and what you cannot, and then to place every ounce of your energy where it actually counts. Think about it. Most of your suffering comes from trying to control the uncontrollable: other people's opinions, past mistakes, future outcomes, delays, traffic, silence, rejection. You exhaust yourself managing what was never yours to manage. Meanwhile, the one thing you do control, your response, goes unattended. Your thoughts about what happens, yours. Your interpretation of events, yours. Your actions from this moment forward, completely yours. Epictetus said it plainly: it's not what happens to you, but how you respond to it that determines your life. This isn't positive thinking. This isn't denial. This is responsibility at the deepest level. Your mind is the only territory you truly govern, and somewhere along the way, fear, anger, and anxiety staged a quiet takeover. They're running the system, making decisions, setting the tone. But you can reclaim that ground, not by fighting harder, not by resisting more, but by understanding the rules of the game and playing it with wisdom instead of panic.
Before you can master emotions, you need to understand them. Fear, anger, anxiety, they are not enemies. They are signals, ancient survival messengers. Fear warns of danger. Anger alerts you to violated boundaries. Anxiety keeps you alert in uncertain conditions. In the right context, they protect you. The problem is not the emotion, it's the outdated operating system. Your nervous system evolved for immediate physical threats, predators, rivals, cliffs in the dark. Today, it reacts to emails like they're lions, to silence like it's rejection from the tribe, to future uncertainty like it's a death sentence. Your emotions are doing their job, just in a world they weren't built for. That's why Seneca warned, we suffer more often in imagination than in reality.
Most fear is about what might happen. Most anger is about the story you tell yourself about what happened. Most anxiety is uncertainty wearing a mask of danger. You're not fighting reality, you're fighting your interpretation of it. And that changes everything, because while you can't control insults, you can control whether they define you. You can't control loss, but you can control the meaning you assign to it. Marcus Aurelius said, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your judgment of it. In this, you can revoke." That judgment, that's the real battlefield. When fear appears, you don't have to obey it. When anger rises, you don't have to surrender to it. When anxiety tightens its grip, you don't have to believe every word it says. You can pause, observe, choose. And that shift from reaction to awareness is where power lives. Now you understand the philosophy. Next, we move into action, because knowing is not enough. Living it is everything. Let's begin with fear, because fear is always looking ahead. Fear does not live in the present, it lives in the future, in the endless land of what if. What if I fail? What if they reject me? What if I lose everything? What if this goes wrong and I can't recover? The Stoics had a name for this habit of the mind: premeditatio malorum. It sounds complicated, but the idea is simple. Calmly imagine the worst-case scenario, not to panic, not to catastrophize, but to remove fear's greatest weapon, the unknown. This practice isn't about spiraling into doom. It's about standing still, looking fear directly in the eye, and asking a grounded question: what is the actual worst that could happen, and could I endure it? Most of the time, when you answer honestly, the answer is yes. Seneca practiced this intentionally. Once a month, he lived as though he had nothing. He slept on the floor. He ate the simplest food. He wore rough, uncomfortable clothes, not because he enjoyed suffering, but because he wanted to teach his nervous system a lesson. Even if everything is taken from me, I survive. He dismantled fear by rehearsing loss before it arrived. The unknown stopped being terrifying once it became familiar. You can do this too. Afraid of losing your job? Imagine it happens. Really walk it through. You'd feel shock, maybe shame, maybe fear. And then what? You update your resume. You reach out to people. You take work you hadn't considered before. You adapt. It would be uncomfortable, painful even. But would it annihilate you? Almost certainly not. Afraid of rejection? Imagine hearing no. It stings. Your chest tightens. Your ego protests. And then, life continues. You try again. You learn. You discover that one person's refusal does not determine your worth. When difficulty is rehearsed with clarity instead of panic, fear loses its ability to freeze you in place. Fear thrives in darkness. When you eliminate it, it shrinks. Now let's turn to anger. Anger is different. Anger is fast. It surges. It feels justified. It convinces you that action must happen now. And that's exactly why it's dangerous. The Stoics understood this deeply. Marcus Aurelius warned, "How much more grievous are the consequences of anger than the causes of it?" In other words, the damage you do while angry is often far worse than the event that triggered it. So what's the Stoic response? Not suppression, not explosion. One word: pause. When you feel that heat rising, the urge to defend, attack, correct, punish, stop. Create distance between the trigger and the response. Breathe. Count if you need to. Walk away. Don't send the message. Don't finish the argument. Give the emotion time to crest and fall, because here's what anger never wants you to realize. It is temporary. It peaks, and then it fades. If you can wait, even minutes, clarity returns. Epictetus taught that it's not events themselves that disturb us, it's our judgments about them. Someone cuts you off in traffic. That's the event. The judgment, this person disrespected me, that's what creates the rage. But judgments are optional. What if they didn't see you? What if they're rushing to an emergency? What if it truly doesn't matter at all? You may not always choose perfectly, but you do get to choose. And every time you pause instead of react, You strengthen self-command. You prove to yourself that you are not owned by impulse. You are free. Now let's talk about anxiety. Anxiety is subtle. It disguises itself as responsibility. It tells you, I'm just helping you prepare. I'm keeping you safe. But in truth, anxiety is simply fear stretched across time. And the Stoic antidote has always been the same. Return to the present. Ask yourself, right now, in this moment, am I safe? Am I breathing? Is there an actual emergency happening right now? Most of the time, the answer is no. Anxiety lives in the gap between now and an imagined future. It demands that you solve problems that do not yet exist, and many that never will. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Confine yourself to the present, not because the future is irrelevant, but because it is inaccessible. You cannot control it. You cannot repair it in advance. All you can do is meet this moment fully and trust that when the future arrives, you will meet it then." So when anxiety tightens its grip, ground yourself. Feel your feet against the floor. Notice what's around you. Listen. Breathe slowly. You are not ignoring tomorrow. You are refusing to steal today. This is where your power has always been. These practices, facing fear through preparation, transforming anger through pause, dissolving anxiety through presence, are not tricks. They are skills. And like any skill, they sharpen through repetition. The Stoics never promised freedom from emotion. They promised freedom from domination by emotion. And that distinction changes everything. When you begin living this way, something subtle happens. Your circumstances may not change. The people may remain difficult. The future may stay uncertain. But you are different. You stop waiting for permission to feel at peace. You stop believing happiness requires control over the uncontrollable.
You realize that freedom is not about reshaping reality, it's about reshaping your relationship with it. There comes a moment, quiet, unmistakable, when you're in a situation that once would have unraveled you and you notice something new. Space. Space between the event and your reaction. Space between thought and belief. Space between emotion and action. And in that space, that's where you now live. Not ruled by impulse, not enslaved by feeling, not thrown by circumstance. The thoughts still arise, fear still whispers, anger still flares, anxiety still tries to pull you forward, but now you recognize them as weather, temporary patterns passing through. You are not the storm, you are the sky that holds it. The Stoics called this apatheia, not apathy, but liberation from being governed by destructive emotion. You don't stop feeling, you stop being controlled. You become the observer instead of the captive. And in that space, response replaces panic, wisdom replaces chaos, strength replaces surrender. This is not perfection. This is not constant bliss. This is command. And command is built daily. You will forget, you will react, you will stumble. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself every morning, not because he mastered it once, but because mastery is renewed. Each pause strengthens the habit. Each moment of awareness rewires the mind. Epictetus said it best, "No great thing is created suddenly. Growth requires time, blossoming, ripening. In every moment you choose presence over panic, courage over avoidance, wisdom over reaction. You are proving something essential to yourself. You were never trapped. The prison was in the mind, and the key has always been in your hands." This is what lives on the other side of the practice. Not perfection, not constant happiness, not a life without pain, but a life where you are in command of your inner world. And that changes everything. So where do you go from here? You practice daily, consistently, imperfectly. Life will give you endless opportunities. Someone will test your patience. That is your invitation to pause. Uncertainty will appear. That is your chance to remain present. A thought will claim you are not enough. That is your moment to question instead of submit. This is not a one-time awakening. It is a daily act of sovereignty. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself every morning who he intended to be.
You will forget, you will react, you will stumble. That is not failure, that is training. Each moment of awareness builds the life you are meant to live. As Epictetus said, nothing great is created suddenly. Growth takes time. You are ripening. So stop fighting yourself. Stop treating thoughts as facts. Stop surrendering your authority to passing emotions. Begin observing. Begin choosing. Begin living as the ruler of your own inner kingdom, because that is what you are. Fear does not own you. Anger does not command you. Anxiety does not decide your fate. Subscribe to Stoic Sage Academy and stay with us. This is not the end. It's the beginning of a transformation nothing can shake.